In this section, we will be studying how to run an experiment. On the ACT, you're going to be often asked to analyze an experiment. This may include changes that may make the experiment better and general trends that you see in the data that is collected. The goal for you in this section is to see how the general process of how to run an experiment and factors that may impact the outcome of the experiment. All right, first thing we're going to talk about is a variable. A variable is just something that's going to change in an experiment. The first type of variable you can have is the independent variable. The independent variable is the variable that you choose to change in the experiment. The dependent variable, on the other hand, also changes, but it's the variable that changes as a result of what you change. You're always going to graph the dependent variable on the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, and the independent variable is going to be graphed on the x-axis, which is your horizontal axis. The key thing is you only want to ever change one variable at a time. That way you can see how the variable affects each other. If you change more than one variable, you will not be able to determine what variable affects the dependent variable. A control is something that's going to stay the same in the experiment. So let's do an example. Jenny read that varying the temperature of a sample of gas would change the volume. She hypothesized that if she increased the temperature, then the volume would increase as well. She used the same sample of gas, the same pressure, and the same number of particles. She performed the experiment by varying the temperature, then recording the volume. For each temperature, she tested it 3 times, and then she averaged the volume. The data that Jenny obtained is presented here. Okay, you can see from this chart here that temperature is in degrees Celsius, that's in this column right here. Volume is in milliliters, that's in the column there on the right-hand side. The independent variable is the variable that Jenny chose to change. Therefore, the independent variable would be the temperature. The dependent variable is the variable that changes as a result of what she changed. Therefore, the dependent variable would be the volume. Controls, remember, are the things that stay the same, that are not changing. So she kept the same sample of gas, the same pressure, and the same number of particles throughout the experiment. Okay, notice here, I'm going to make a graph of the temperature and the volume. The temperature is the independent variable, so that's going to be graphed on your x-axis, which is your horizontal axis. The volume is your dependent variable, so that's going to be graphed on your y-axis, which is your vertical axis. First thing I'm going to do is start by putting some numbers here on my x-axis. I'm going to go by 20s. So this is going to be 20, 40, 60, and then 80. So each of these lines is going to be 10 degrees Celsius. Now you want to make sure when you make a graph, you want to go by consistent intervals. So you don't want to change this from, say, 20 to 40. Keep it consistent the whole time. Volume, the same thing. I'm going to go by 2s on my axis here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Now again, notice it was consistently going up by 2. I don't want to change it. If I go up by 2 each time, I have to continually go up by 2. I can't change it from 2 to 3 and so forth. Okay, so my first point on my data table was the point 10 for my temperature, and the volume was 4.1. So I'm going to come up to 10 and go up to 4.1 and make a mark there. My next point was at 20, and the volume was 6.2. So I'm going to go to 20, come up to 6.2, and make a mark there. My next point was at 30 degrees Celsius and 8.1. So I'm going to go to 30, go up to 8.1. My next mark was at 40 and 9.5 milliliters. So go to 40, up to 9.5, make a mark there. My next mark was at 50 and 11.9. Then I was at 60 and 14. And then my last mark was at 70 degrees Celsius, and I was at a volume of 16.3 milliliters. Okay, so there's my points. I'm going to draw a line of best fit through those points because it looks like these points form a fairly straight line. So my line of best fit is going to go something like that. Notice, after drawing this graph, there's a direct relationship from that graph. As the temperature is increasing, the volume is also increasing. In conclusion, the ACT will present you with various experiments, and you must understand the basics behind how they are conducted. Understanding this will help you score well on the science portion of the ACT test.